Welcome back to part 2 of programming AWS ElasticCache Redis. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to open up Putty and connect into our Node.js development instance, our EC2 instance. So once we're in there, we can cd into our sample application. And what we want to do is we want to install the npm Redis package. So that will enable us to connect into our Redis cluster. Okay, and that's fine then. Okay, so now just jumping into our Atom IDE. So we just remote edit into our instance. So browse hosts, select our instance there. Okay, and then we'll just select our index.js, our sample application. And we'll just paste in from our lab notes, the code there. Now what we need to do, so we've got our port here, which is 6379. Yours should be the same. If it's not, then you'll need to change that. We need to put in our Redis endpoint in here as well. So we'll just jump into Redis, or into our ElasticCache dashboard, and we click on our cache cluster and click on our node here, and we can get our endpoint there. So we'll just copy that over. And we'll put that in there. Okay, so just Control S to say that to the EC2 instance. Okay, so just jumping back into our EC2 instance in Putty there in our command line. So we just do node index.js to run our application and see what happens. Okay, so we've successfully connected to our ElasticCache Redis cluster. So we'll just Control C out of that and we'll start looking at what other things we can do with it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to extend our application a little bit. So in that, when we've connected in here, so we're going to put in a call to another function which we're going to create called write Redis key. Now that is going to store a key called MyScore, and it's going to store it with the current high score for that person, which we've got in here, 1000. So when we go back and read that, we should be able to find 1000 coming back again. So we can see here we've got, just going through quickly through the application, so we're requiring async, requiring Redis here. So that's our Redis npm package that we installed. We've got our host number there, and our port number and our host address there. And then we create our Redis client on that port and host. Then we connect into that, and then we jump into our write Redis key. So what's going on here? It's client set. So set is a Redis command, and we're setting that key, which is MyScore, and we're setting it to a value which is 1000. And then we're just going to console log out the response. If successful or unsuccessful or whatever, we're going to console log that out when that's been completed. So in the callback there, we've got console log response. So without further ado, we do Control S and we'll get on with it. So jumping back into our Putty command line here. So we want to run our application. So node index.js. Okay, so we're successfully connected into the application and sending out OK message saying that we successfully wrote to that Redis cluster. So we'll just now go back and Control C out of that and back into Atom IDE. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put an expiry time on that key when we set it. This is quite important. So if we've got applications where we've got thousands of users, we don't want to have keys flying around everywhere and stored in our Redis database without management. So we always like to put an expiry time on that key. And so I've just put in here 30 seconds. In reality, you probably want a bit more than that, but we're just putting 30 seconds for here. So in 30 seconds time, that key will expire. It will be basically deleted from that database. So Control S again to upload it. And back in again in our PuTTY console here. Again, we run our application. And there we can see that's worked fine as well. So connected through, set that key, and it's set an expiry time on that key. And back into our Atom IDE again. So we're going to now look at putting in a call to a function that we're going to create called read Redis key. So we'll put that in the callback for write. So after we've written our key, we can then go ahead and read it afterwards. So read Redis key, and then put the name of that key that we're reading. So that will use the get Redis command, and then we just put the key name in there, which will be my high score, and it will send the response out. So the response will be the value of my score, which should output 1000 for us. So Control S, and we'll see how that works in the console. So back in the PuTTY console, we'll run that application. Okay, so we can see we've connected in, we've written that key, we've put an expiry time on it, and and we've read it, and it's outputted 1000 for us. So that worked perfectly. So what we've done so far is we've written a single key with a single value to Redis, and we've read from that. So in reality, that's probably a very simple application, and we'd probably want to do a little bit more than that. So Redis also gives us the opportunity to store objects containing multiple keys. So that's just at one single level. So you cannot have objects of objects. So you can't have that cascaded as such. So it's just objects that will contain multiple keys. And you use the HMSet command to do that. So just looking here, we've put in a call to a write Redis object function that we'll be creating. So after that console log response in our read Redis key function, we're going to create an object that's just going to have 3 keys with information in them. So this is info 1 down to this is info 3. And then we're going to call that write Redis object function that we're going to create, and we're going to pass in the name of that object called myinfo, and then the actual object itself. So then we're going to write Redis object, and we can see here we're going to use the HMSet command, which again is a command of Redis, and we're going to pass in the name of that object that we're going to save, and the value being the object itself. And then we're going to console log out the response from that. So just Control S, save that to your EC2 instance. And again, back in our PuTTY console, we'll do node index.js to run our application. Okay, so we can see there that it's connected in. It's written the key, it's put an expiry time on it, it's read that key, and now it's also written an object of keys as well. So it's gotten the OK call response there, so that's fine. And again, we'll jump back into Atom IDE, and we're going to put in a call to another function called read Redis object that we'll be creating. And we're going to pass the object name that we're looking for. So we're going to read that object and then output that object to the console. So we use the hggetAllRedis command there, and then we just pass that object name to the Redis cluster, and then we'll get a response from that Redis cluster, which will console log out to the screen. So we'll just Control S to upload that. And again, back into our PuTTY console, we'll just run our application. Okay, look at that. That's working fine. So we connected in, and we've written our object out there, and now we've read our object, and we've console logged out that object. So it's got an object containing 3 keys, info 1, info 2, and info 3. So everything's working fine. So I hope that's given you a good understanding of how to use, or first of all, how to create a Redis cluster using the ElasticCache service, and then also how to use your NodeJS application to read and write store data to that Redis cluster, and to put an expiry time on that as well. And so that's that's ElasticCache Redis for us, and I'll see you in the next lessons.